We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180 Koerner. You know, Clay, we've been lucky to have some great guests over the years, everyone from Thomas Sowell to Steve Forbes to George Will to Phyllis Schlafly. But one of my favorite guests is the gentleman we have on the phone with us now, author, talk show host, economist, and the man who last time he was on the show gave Clay and I a full and general amnesty, Dr. Walt E. Williams. Dr. Williams, welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Well, hi. Thank you for inviting me back.
And thanks for the amnesty.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And your listeners can pick it up on my website as walterewilliams.com, and on the upper right-hand corner, it's a gift there.
You know, it's funny. I'll let you explain that, but I have to tell you a quick story. A friend of mine, we were discussing the black community and the Republican Party and everything, and right in the middle of the conversation, I pulled it out and handed it to him, and I thought he was going to die laughing sitting in the chair. So tell us about the amnesty.
Well, just very briefly, because it's right there at walterewilliams.com.
Uh-huh.
It's a certificate of amnesty and pardon that I, in my magnanimity, have granted to all Americans of European ancestry, both for their own grievances of those and those of their forebears against my people. And the reason why I'm granting this amnesty and pardon is so that people of European ancestry stop feeling guilty and stop acting like damn fools.
Well,
because a lot of what white people do, I think it represents guilt, and and they accept forms of behavior from black Americans that they wouldn't begin to accept from white Americans, and this is devastating to us.
Sure. Well, I get a pass on this deal because I was born in Canada and my parents are European, so I don't know how far back we have to go, but I think I'm pretty safe. I've got a couple questions for you. You know, one story, Dr. Williams, that we've kind of avoided like the plague is the Zimmerman story. But I was in Canada visiting some family, and I've got a brother that's as liberal as I am conservative, and I asked him about this, or he asked me about the story, and I said, well, how are you guys looking at it up here in the Canadian liberal media? And he said, the way they're approaching it up here is two things. The first thing is they're looking at black-on-black crime in the inner cities. And the second thing is they're wondering why the media in America isn't picking up on that and why they're focusing so much on Zimmerman. And I said, wow, that's an interesting perspective from a liberal media in another country. And he said,
yeah, they're rather remarkable, yeah.
Yeah, and he said they're basically laughing at you guys. I said, well, why not? The rest of the world is too, so, jump on line.
And if you listen to people like the president and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and other people, you would think that one of the major problems that black Americans face is getting killed by white people, and it turns out there's a shocking statistic, at least it's shocking to me, that every year 7,000 to 8,000 black Americans are victims of homicide. And matter of fact, while black Americans are just 13% of our population, we're over 50% of homicide victims, and 94% of the time, the person who's the perpetrator is another black person. And for people to put, as your friends in Canada say, put all these resources in worrying about Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, I think is just really ludicrous. And the outcome of the trial showed that Zimmerman was acting in self-defense. And I think one of the reasons why the civil rights establishment they just can't get over it is because these 6 jurors just would not cave into pressure. And then just one other final thing about this, or just another thing about it, is that the prosecutors were despicable. That is, they charged the person, they charged Zimmerman initially with second-degree murder. Then they saw that their case was very, very weak during the trial, and they asked for another charge to be manslaughter. And then finally, they did the ridiculous thing of, since Zimmerman was under 18 years old, since
Trayvon
Martin was under 18 years old, to charge Zimmerman with child abuse.
And now the government's going to go after him.
Yeah, and I think that I don't think that the Justice Department is going to go after them because they're going to wind up looking like jackasses.
So what's new? Yeah. Our guest by phone, economist, professor, talk show host, somebody who loves to rattle the cage, Dr. Walt Williams.
You know, Dr. Williams, they refer to Zimmerman as a white Hispanic. And then we have a president who refers to himself as black when actually he's a white black.
Yeah, right.
So,
and a lot of people don't know how we got into this white Hispanic, because initially, when Trayvon Martin was shot, they said he was shot by a white man.
Right.
And then that's what all over the news media. That was they were playing the race card, and then they find out, well, his mother is Hispanic and his father is white, so that's when they had to change it to a white Hispanic. And I've gotten some people kind of disturbed, because I said, well, just to maintain consistency, we ought to call the president not a black man; he's a white black man.
Exactly.
Because his mother is white, his father is black.
Yeah, that would be
matter of fact, I also point out that a lot of people say, well, gee, he's the first black president. I say, no. It'd be better to say that he's the first Kenyan American president.
There you go. There you go.
I like that.
You know, I never could understand why they made such a big deal of the Zimmerman trial, and yet back in Florida, there were two young black boys that approached a young white woman, asked her for money. She had no money, and they said, well, if you don't have any money, we're going to shoot your 2-year-old baby in the face. And they went and killed the 2-year-old baby, but nothing ever came of that.
That's right. And then it turns out that and it's a tragic thing, and I wrote about it in my column this week. It's a tragic thing, and that is whenever there's interracial crime, 83% of the time, a white is the victim and a black is the perpetrator, and so it's and then we had this. I don't know whether it's gotten out to your part of the world, but it probably has. These so-called flash mobs, where a group of black youngsters will go into stores and ransack the store and steal stuff and beat up white people on public conveyances, take their cell phones or the pocketbook, and matter of fact, the mayor of Chicago had to close down the beaches because one day last year, because black roving mobs were preying on white people. And so and you know, I think that this kind of stuff that many black leaders are remaining silent on, I think that we're just kindling out for some racial arsonist to set it on fire, and to maybe to have a race war in the United States, and I doubt whether blacks would be the victors of such a war.
Well, I hope that never comes to be. I have another issue I wanted to just discuss briefly, the Fort Hood issue, where the president said it was workplace violence, and yet the major who's on trial said it was terrorism.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes a big.
Well, you know, we're changing a lot of our language nowadays. You know, like a coup is not a coup.
Right.
An evacuation, as they're doing in Yemen, is not an evacuation. And terrorism is. And matter of fact, the Obama administration, they're reluctant to even call these people terrorists.
Well, terrorism is going to become like the N-word. You can't use it.
Right, absolutely. and it's all a part of this politically correct that we won't be honest with each other now. We just make up things.
Well, that seems to be coming out of the White House, doesn't it?
Well, I think its roots are a little deeper than that. I think it has come out of the universities. That is probably the most anti-American institution today are many of the universities across our land.
You know, I would agree with that, with the exception of maybe the media. It would probably be a close second.
Well, the media comes from the universities.
That's true too.
Right.
When
and many of the universities, they're being run by the by the hippies of the 60s.
Yeah, this is true. People that that's a whole other subject.
I want to add one thing before we take a break. That have you ever noticed that Obama only talks to kids and students, never talks to adults?
That's right.
I'll let you answer that, Dr. Williams, when we come back from the break, okay?
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on News Talk 1180 Koerner.